Hey y'all, this is Marley K. Hope y'all are well. Got a story I want to share with you, and it is tied to the potential of some type of cyber threat, EMP strike, or other incident that could knock out our infrastructures, power, water, supply chain, computers, banking, whatever, and wreak havoc and cause great harm to American citizens because we are some of the most comfortable people on earth. We have not experienced any war here in, a couple hundred years. Um, we've been having some cyber attacks and a little bit of discomfort, but not a whole lot. And we are not prepared for any type of um, critical infrastructure going down, whether it's communications, supply chain, water, whatever. Most people don't have preps. They don't have food stocked away. They don't have water put away. They don't have, an extra supply of medications, hygiene products, all sorts of things that you will need to be hunkered down with, spring, summer, fall, no matter when it happens. Like people just don't think that those things can occur. And the government has been warning us for a couple of years now that we need to prepare. And we've been seeing an uptick in these types of infrastructure attacks. And so now they have launched this campaign called Shields Ready in an effort to secure critical infrastructure. But we know, it depending on where you live, especially if you are true Israel, African American, Black people, wherever we at, if we are, in our old places where they have allowed us to live, those places don't have good infrastructures. We got places now, nothing is happening and the water ain't good. Look at Flint. Look at, Mississippi. Um, just all over the country, you find where we are, there are problems, contaminated soils. Um, those things are not being repaired. They just identify them after a certain period of time, but they don't fix them. And, you look at our roads and highways. Uh, they forced us to relinquish our power and control and transition us into this digital world that they can't control. And so now we are in a different type of war where we have to be concerned about threats to infrastructure and how those threats will impact us. So I want to share this article with you and then go over some things that we probably should be considering, and I've talked about them ad nauseum before, but I'm going to talk about it again because I have new followers and because um, we are very close. Like they haven't officially announced we're in World War III, but we're in World War III. They're sending like ships overseas. We already got boots on the ground overseas in the Middle East. We got boots on the ground in Ukraine. We got military bases all over the world. They, whoever these so-called enemies are attacking soldiers and military bases overseas. And so it is highly likely that we are going to receive threats here because we've been flooded over the past, you know, say 13, 14 years with bunches of immigrants from all over the world who are here for a specific purpose. Now, I'm not saying everybody here is a terrorist, but there are a lot of people who came here for nefarious reasons, and that is to cause trouble to America. Now, everybody knows we are the most hated people in the world, the African American Black people, and we can't do nothing. So, uh, we are at the mercy of our captors, I guess, so to speak. So because we're here and because we are in a domestic violence situation, we have to be proactive in our thinking and forward thinking so that we can make sure we are safe and that when trouble comes, it prayerfully passes over us. So let's get into this story. So it came out on today. It says Shields Ready initiative outlines strategies for preparing critical infrastructure organizations for potential disruption and building more resilience into systems, facilities, and processes. So, all these decades, they've had these infrastructures, they have not been upgrading them, they haven't done anything to them, and they're not ready for what's coming. And the enemy knows that because they've been here for decades, scouting out the place, figuring out what's a good soft target, what could harm or inconvenience a lot of people, what could cause us to turn on each other and turn on our own government so that we eat ourselves from the inside out, and infrastructure, because we are just a pampered, sheltered people, which is why I've been telling you to be accustomed to, become accustomed to primitive living and this season of discomfort, because we're all going to experience it. I just believe they're not predicting pandemics and illnesses and viruses, and now they're telling you you're going to have cyber attacks and infrastructure issues and EMP strike, and those things not going to happen either. They're going to happen. I just don't know when. But the point that I want to drive home is, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And if you stay ready, you don't have to be out in the fray when everybody's out fighting and going, trying to rob and steal um, from stores and figure out where this stuff is and that thing is that they need because they don't have nothing, and the children starving, and you know you don't have to deal with that. Now, you may have to defend what you have, and you need to be prepared for that. But when this infrastructure thing happens, no matter how it happens, if it's by a terrorist attack or if it's an EMP strike and it's part of this fifth generation warfare, you got to be ready. Don't nobody care uh, about us. We on our own. They're gonna be the politicians are gonna be in their bunkers, military gonna be protected in military facilities, and you're gonna be out here on your own. The police not gonna protect you because they're gonna abandon post, a large majority of them, and go home and protect their families and their houses and their communities. You're gonna be on your own. So these are some things that we need to think about. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, have announced the launch of Shields Ready campaign to promote critical national infrastructure, which is CNI, if you see that anyplace, security and resilience. Shields Ready focuses on broad strategic strategies for preparing critical infrastructure organizations for potential disruption and building more resilience into systems, facilities, and processes. So, listen, when they say they're focusing on broad, they're like, okay, how do we get the power started back up in 6 months? The finite or the narrow piece of how do I survive for 6 months until they get the power back up, that's on you. So you have to really be thinking critically about what could happen. And it's really important that you read these reports where they're talking about these cyber attacks, where if there's an infrastructure attack on the power, a grid, or half of the country, loses power, or all of the country loses power, what that looks like, what happened, what happens to people in nursing homes, what happens to people in power hospitals, because their backup generators are not going to work, or they may not work, or they may work for a little while, but they may die out. Like, people are going to perish very quickly. Like, within the first 24 hours, people are going to be dying. There's not going to be any communications, so you can't call the funeral home for the funeral home to come pick people up and do something with them. And even if the deceased were picked up, well, the funeral home doesn't have any power to do anything to anybody. So then what happens to those people? What happens to sanitation? What happens to the food supply? Stores are going to lose power. People who don't have money, they're just going to break into the stores and steal what they can. And once the stores are empty, it's nothing left. There's nothing coming because there's no communications. There's no power. You can't get money out of the bank. You can't charge people for food. And even if you do have cash, how do you um, exchange that? Um, what about paying people? People ain't going to go to work if they ain't getting paid. Like, those are types of things people are not really thinking about. You just assume, oh, the store's going to be open. Nobody going to work if you can't get paid. If banks don't know how much money you have, they can't hit a button and make you have some numbers on the screen so you can swipe a card and go somewhere. That's not going to work. So this is why it's essential to pay attention to this stuff and get your houses in order. It says it complements Scissors Shields Up campaign, which encourages critical infrastructure stakeholders to take specific, time-sensitive actions that reduce risk in response to specific threat intelligence during cyber attacks, physical security threats, or natural disasters in response to specific threat intelligence. In May, research from cybersecurity services firm Brightwell revealed a surge in insider threats across USCNI as attackers exploit human factors. So, if they're talking about insider threats, that means people who work for these companies or do contract work for these companies. It's not outside threats, it's inside threats. So that means homegrown stuff, potentially. The research indicated that economic pressure and remote working could be increasing CNI insider threats, while nation-state actors and ransomware attacks continue to pose significant risk. So this remote working from home, and just people who can be paid off to sell some information so that the infrastructure can be attacked. They get paid and run off with the bag, but when the bad happens, you don't know anything about it and you're caught off guard. So again, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Shields Up campaign outlines 4 key steps to CNI security and resilience. The Shields Ready initiative urges CNI providers to build more resilience into systems, facilities, and processes by taking action before a crisis or incident even occurs. It includes 4 key messages advising CNI organizations to identify their most critical systems and assets for their operations and understand their potential dependencies on other infrastructure systems that enable the continuity of their own operations. 2, consider the full range of threats and hazards that could disrupt infrastructure operations and evaluate specific vulnerabilities and consequences the threats and hazards could pose. And this is really good too, because you could do this for your own household. You could do this for your own family. You could do this for your own survival circle. Have this same type of messaging and advising and reviewing, potential threats and issues. Develop both a strategic risk management plan, and that's what I do. I just am gifted, unfortunately, with seeing risk and pointing them out and telling people about them. Now, people don't listen to me, but I do tell them. And so, you know, it's very good to have a risk management mindset. because again, it ties into being proactive instead of having to be reactive and caught off guard. So it says develop both a strategic risk management plan to reduce the risk and vulnerabilities identified, as well as actionable incident response and recovery plans to help withstand disruptions and rapidly restore operations with minimal downtime. Exercise incident response and recovery plans under realistic conditions, and periodically evaluate and update strategic plans. So that means, you know, prep your stuff, test it out, see how things work, and then go back to the drawing board. Tools and resources for U.S. critical infrastructure to respond to recover from threats. To respond to and recover from threats. So this is the U.S. critical infrastructure entities, from schools to hospitals to water facilities, have the tools and resources to respond and recover from disruption, said Jen Easterly, CISA director. Now, here is where I have a problem with what this statement says, because I think this is a lie. All these things require human beings to have critical thinking skills, to have compassion for their fellow man, for their nation, for their communities. And it requires people to actually participate in restoring stuff. If all hell breaks loose in America, with the state, the way that with the state of this nation, we're divided, we are selfish, we are greedy, we don't care about each other. And in particular, in the Black African American Black community, we are divided. We do not look out for each other. We cannot work together. We are not in positions to make any of these things happen. You know, not a lot of us are in law enforcement. Not a lot of us work in critical infrastructure, um, uh, career fields. We don't work with water treatment plants. We don't work with, power companies. We don't work a lot in communication. Certain the important types of communications like radio. Um, while a lot of us have been in the military, there are not a lot of people in America who have been in war and been in the military. There are some people who have been in the military and have never seen conflict, have never done um, anything related to infrastructure. So when you're talking about people have the tools and the resources, the biggest resource required to get an infrastructure back up is people, are humans. And if you can't communicate with humans, they don't know what's going on. When you go to the bathroom to turn your sink on, or you need water to flush your toilet and the water doesn't come out, well, we know the infrastructure isn't working. But do you know the people who are responsible for maintaining those things, fixing those things so they'll come back online? And when they do, you know, are those people going to be compensated? Well, when there's an EMP strike, a lot of people got modern cars. Their stuff ain't going to work. So people are not going to be able to get to work to make these infrastructures, um, come back online. There's just a lot of things that people just take for granted. And when they make blanket statements like this, and I know how people are some of the most selfish, even when it's not about self-preservation, just selfish for no reason. I find it hard to believe that these facilities are going to be able to rebound quickly when there's a disruption. And people love money. So if they're not going to work for something, that's the American way. If you don't, it's zero sum. In order for me to have, somebody else got to lose. So you're going to lose out if I got to leave my family to come help fix this, you know, power system so that the whole community can have power and, fewer people will perish. We don't know what they've been doing, and you have to look at your own local communities. I live in a rural community. I feel confident people would come together and do whatever they needed to do, but they might not, because somebody may be thinking, if I leave my house uncovered to get the power back going, I got to leave my wife and kids at home by themselves. Yeah, they may all need know how to handle firearms, but I don't want to leave, if you're the man of the house and man of your family, you may not want to leave your family unprotected and defenseless. Not that they're defenseless, but just the fact that there's no man there and put your family at risk for the community who may or may not be grateful and for compensation that you may or may not get. Um, I don't see that happening at all. Very few people. I would be shocked, but the state of Babylon as it is, I can't see it. By taking steps today to prepare for incidents, critical infrastructure, communities, and individuals can be better prepared to recover from the impact of the threats of tomorrow and into the future. So it's very important that you do your part to prepare your house for what's coming. I do not think they are talking about this stuff for nothing. They're not launching these initiatives for nothing. And again, I keep thinking about that 2024 doomsday map and that 2025 Deagle report. I'm going to try to find that Deagle report on the way, way back internet and read it to you. But in a very short period of time, a lot of people will perish because a lot of people do not have survival skills. They don't live in places where you can access water, you can't access food, if there's no transportation, no food is coming in. Whatever happens, whatever's on the highway, whatever is wherever you are, that may be all you have access to in like the first 24 hours. After that, you're on your own. So if you can't hunt, if you don't know how to fish, if you don't know how to live off the land, if you didn't put back stuff, you could be in grave danger and not even know it. And even if you did all those things, if you don't have a method to protect yourself, should um, scavengers come upon you, what do? How do you keep your stuff? This is one thing to have it, but then you got to have a method and a plan to keep it. So, do you have uh, men around who will protect you? Do the women possess firearms or other weapons that will protect their person and their homes? Are you going to cover up your windows? Will you lock down your house? What does that look like? You got to have plans for all of this because infrastructure is one thing, but there are going to be a whole lot of people who don't have stuff and they're going to be coming looking for your stuff. So, with all that said, keep prepping. The Shields Ready campaign, spearheaded by CISA and supported by FEMA, will ensure that U.S. critical infrastructure is better equipped and more resilient against all threats and hazards, ranging from cyber attacks to natural disasters, added Alejandro in Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. By working with our partner and providing them with the tools, providing while working with our partners and providing them with the tools they need for more effective risk management and incident report. DHS is building on its critical safety and security mission and meeting the challenges of today and tomorrow. So, this campaign I think it kicks off today. And I'll put a link in the description to it so that you can read these reports and understand the threats and know what the problems are. We have little time, in my opinion, to prep. But if you understand what the potential threats are, the potential risk could be, and how long an infrastructure issue could last based on where you live, that's just knowing is half the battle. And again, if there's a cyber threat, if there's no communication, no internet, no power, whatever, you won't have any information. But if you learn this stuff and know this stuff and read about what it looks like, what could potentially happen, how people are going to react, because they've done simulations and scenarios, they could tell you how fast people will die, how people will react to not having food, not having water, to not knowing, having access to information, because we're in this um, quick 24-hour news cycle, social media. You could just get on X, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and try to find out what's going on. Well, when you don't have those infrastructures in place, nobody knows what's going on, and people are going to be guessing, but people are going to be afraid, and they're going to react based off of their fear. They're going to be selfish based off of that fear. They're going to be wicked because of scarcity and fear. Some people just gonna be wicked because they just stay on demon time, and they just are gonna be wicked. You got to worry about those threats as well. But there are lots of things that we're going to have to be concerned about. And so, food, water, medication, hygiene, um, having just your basic necessities, having extra water, even just bottles of water to flush the toilet. You'd be surprised that, if your water treatment plant um, goes down, whatever water is in the system that you can access when it goes down, that's all you get. Once things shut down, it's shut down. Once the emergency generators stop working, they stop working. If there is no more water to get out of the tanks or wherever the water is stored, or that's it. Your toilets won't flush. You won't have water to cook. You won't have water to bathe. So if you haven't been preparing for that, then that is going to be a challenge. How do you flush the toilet in your house? Um, how do you wash dishes? How do you do, all the other things that you need to do? So these are things that you really, really, really need to be paying attention to and prepping for, because this could go on for a week, but it could go on for 6 months. It could go on for a year. It could go on for 5 years, depending on where you live. So you need to be ready for these threats. And they are telling us, they are giving us a heads up, which I'm grateful for, even though I know why, because they're evil and the devil got to tell you what he's going to do to you before he do it. But we know, and knowing is half the battle. So with that said, y'all please take a look at these planning considerations for cyber incidents, critical infrastructure, security and resilience month toolkits, and the infrastructure resilience planning framework. The reason that you need to um, read these toolkits and these essentials and responses is because you will know what is going to happen in your community should communications go down, should any of the critical infrastructure be disabled or destroyed, especially if you live in a large city or near a large city. And that matters because when large people in large cities lose stuff, you know where they're coming? To the rural communities. They're coming to the smaller towns because they think the smaller towns have more stuff. We don't have more stuff. We don't have nothing. We just don't have it. But they will come anyway because that's just how people think. So, understanding what their plans are and how the government is going to respond will help you. Doesn't mean that this is actually how they'll respond. It doesn't mean they'll be able to respond quickly. It doesn't even mean that, your local entities know anything about this stuff, because a lot of places just don't share information. They don't get information. They just kind of like in their own bubble. So understand that there's a new plan instituted. It's called Shields Ready. It's the National Coordinator for Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience. And it is to help us prepare and to adapt to changing risk conditions and to recover should there be any disruptions to our infrastructure. So, with that said, again, I'm putting the links in the description. Um, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Um, Follow me on Rumble and Odyssey in the event this channel is taken down. If the internet goes down, I won't be here. Nobody will be here. You won't have any information. So please feel free to go through some of my old content because I talk about a whole lot of things that are linked to these threats and the reasons for these prospective threats. Also follow me on social media. Links are in the description. And if you'd like to support the channel, I really would appreciate it. Links are in the description. Again, keep prepping, keep praying, keep seeking the Most High. Understand that faith without no work, which is preparation, is just worthless. We can have faith, but we also have to get up off our butts and do something. And so, whether that is growing a little bit of food, hiding it someplace, buying extra food and canning it, and so you can store it and have it, food preserved for difficult times, then, you can build you a little cushion and maybe have something to share with loved ones or other people who didn't prepare or who refused to wake up. But this is going to be a really big deal if something happens, and I anticipate it's going to happen. So I'm going to try to find that Deagle report and bring it to you. Um, it it came out and then it just disappeared because people were like, "Hey, how do you know so many millions of people are going to perish?" But this is how. If our infrastructures are attacked, regardless of whether it's inside, outside, whatever, because of this new type of warfare, individuals in little communities all over this nation will be impacted. So we have to be prepared. We got to look out for ourselves because nobody else is going to look out for us. And again, understand Depop deletion, global deletion is on the agenda. And it's going to happen in a variety of ways. Not being prepared for infrastructure issues is another way to get rid of a lot of people: men, women, children, elderly, unfit. This is why it is very important for you to get in shape. This is why it's very important for you to fast, eat fewer meals, reduce what you eat better. It is better for you to get off of medication, talk to your doctor, but try to find holistic, um, you know, alternatives to medications, because once medications are gone, that's it. And then whatever else is available, your local governments can declare martial law and commandeer those things so you don't have access to them. And the one thing you don't want to have to do is go to the government to go get anything because you're putting them in your business and you're putting yourself at risk. So think about these things. Think proactively. Have a risk management mindset at all times and understand what is happening. Things are happening fast. Things are happening, all over the place. And we don't know when these inside threats or these sleeper cells are going to just wreak havoc and cause us individuals who have nothing to do with nothing all sorts of grief. So, with that said, y'all keep prepping, keep praying, keep seeking the Most High, keep repenting, keep that Sabbath, and keep the faith, because we're going to make it. We're going to endure to the end. We're going to talk this thing out so we can walk it out. That's my 2 cents, and I'm sticking to them. All right. Love y'all. This is Marley K, and I'm out.